Hello, welcome to again to another episode of Talk Architecture. I'm your host, Naziaty Yaacob, and following up to the last episode on why architecture, a philosophical question. Um, we're going into this topic, which is going to be in two parts. The first is touching on what architecture school did not teach you in a more general way. And then subsequently, you'll have the deep dives or getting into certain aspects and discussing it further. Now, in general, we can say that architecture school may not be teaching or providing courses and programs to deal with the 21st century problems. Is a vocation only to do with money making. So, um, would the model of catering to, um, shall we say, the goal, the aim of delivering programs that young people study and come out being the graduate architect that is able to serve clients? So, these clients, what are they? Are they the developers solely, or we're thinking about others as well? Um, would they be single clients, meaning homeowners or people who want you to design their homes, or the user in general, people, society? So when we think about that goal of serving clients, and we are going beyond just people who have the money or the say what you should build. We're going beyond that. We're going to understand about the whole idea of a vocation, the architecture vocation, not just something that you could do for a couple of decades and then you go and retire. I mean, there are a lot of philosophies, obviously, and approach to being an architect. Will your architecture school that um, serve that need, whatever that you wish to pursue? Now, in the 21st century, we're talking about generalization or a general course program. Are we talking about a specific course program? And are we going to say something of a hybrid or neither a general program nor a specialized program? When we're going on and on about broad-based architecture education for the first degree, we are looking at the passage of time, shall we say, the rites of passage, meaning 18, 19, 20-year-old after foundation course. They got some courses in design, which they learned, and many things that they learn. What are the things that they should need to be learning? So we discussed this before, that in the studio program there need to be a sort of a coach, a sort of consultant and an expert, depending on the topic that they're learning. Those are the input and those are the discussion, dialogue that is being provided for by the education service provider, which is a university. So if in the 21st century we talk about entrepreneurs, um, what are the skills needed? One thing that we know that we need to be savvy in digital application, computer aided programs, computer-aided drawings, or the knowledge of that, and other knowledge of designing with computers and technology. And technology in this day and age to do with digital applications or the know-how on how to design using computers and technology. But, soon anyone can do that. I mean, it will be easier to do that more and more. Templates and forms going to be digitalized. And the skill needed for that is not highly skilled in the sense that you want to have an architect doing that. So what's the use of an architect in this day and age, in the 21st century? The architect could be placed as someone with a lot of knowledge in many things, knowing how to strategically look at a problem or problems, and yet go and zoom into the detail and know how to go about with solving the problem. Now, it's similar to a medical professional, obviously. I mean, but a medical professional has to study about the human body or human being, and I'd assume that they also look into the context of the human being. There are philosophy of medicine and so on. And architecture is about dealing with inanimate objects. So objects are three-dimensional, which you can do activities in them, be it things to do with habitating or sleeping and a domestic sort of idea or public engagements and events. So in a way, one deals with the inanimate object, one deals with the animate human being, but are similar in a way that you have to strategically look far wider and then at the same time tactically solving the detail. Entrepreneurs also need to have that quality, and there is nothing wrong that you studied architecture and you become an entrepreneur. Just say you're dealing with healthcare and architecture, and just say you're dealing with the context is architecture, but the issues are healthcare. When you design clinics or hospitals, it's straightforward. It's a type of building that is quite specialized and needing accommodations that are specific to what clinics need to function, what hospitals need to function, and how they need to function. And the architect's knowledge of what are hospitals and healthcare needed to be there. If traditionally solving the problem of architecture, coming up with the design and build at the end of a functioning building. So what's the difference between that and if the architect has UI, UX, a designer skills? So when we thought of design and infrastructure in terms of the built form, we also the architect always, they are aware as well how it works in terms of the services. Because when one deals with service providers, like a hospital or clinic, one deals with the infra or the building facilities as well as the services that one have to offer in order to get a complete experience for the patient to recover. Dealing with the pain, sorting that out, may it be a surgery or rehabilitation, and then later the patient will be inpatient for a while and then outpatient and having to deal with it at home. So the architect dealing with a hospital design or a clinic, well, let's say hospital here because there is inpatient, would need to understand how it all operates and not only to design a building. One would think so. Or at least in the team, you have the experts, or you, what do you call it, engage an expert to come and give the input or look at through the drawings to see whether they've considered all aspects of what is needed. But if the project architect, who could, we could say 6 years experience or even 3 years experience after graduation, is to be somewhat of an expert or understand thoroughly what it is that one needs to do to make it a good design that complements with the services, then the project architect will ask the right questions. The right questions, asking the right questions, ladies and gentlemen, is what architecture school did not teach you. Sorry, I had to go this far on the 11th, almost 12 minutes of this episode to get to the first point. Now, that is a bigger thing, asking the right questions, because knowing the context, knowing what it is at hand that they have to do, that skill of being strategic and tactical is also another thing that architecture school did not teach you. So it's linked here, asking the big questions, asking the right questions. That's why we have visiting critics coming in during the design thesis, asking the student who presented to them, what do you understand the big picture? What's the big picture? And when you talk about the concept, the story behind it, there needs to be a big picture scenario or a big picture storytelling that leads to the project. You just don't approach a design thesis like you approach a second-year project. But I did mention earlier on, there are similarities, but because of the advanced learning and skills needing to be in the 5th year compared to second year, one needed to find out whether the future graduate that is graduating very soon after the 5th year has that skill, that asking the right questions and knowing strategically and tactically what the thesis is about. So schools of architecture, if they see the finished article at the end of 5th year, if they're not selective if they're not discerning or they're not really critical of the students that they have, these graduates would graduate and become an architect. But when they start becoming a project architect in the 3rd year after graduation, will they be confident to do so? Because they can't ask. They were not trained. The architecture school did not teach them how to ask the right questions. One could see that a lot in the design thesis year, the situation where the School of Architecture, they don't want to fail half the class, so they would graduate them. And you can sweep it under the carpet if you want, but I can clearly, honestly confess that this is a situation that does not help the architecture profession. Hello, again. Sorry, interruption. What architecture school did not teach you is the question of the day. And we were talking about the bigger picture, being able to answer the question when a critique asks, what's the bigger picture? That is able to explain the what questions that you asked. The right questions that you ask is what we want the student of architecture to come up with. No use asking questions that are not going to help you move forward. In a design thesis, it takes about 36 weeks throughout the whole academic year. There's enough research, enough investigation from one phase to another to move forward, to go to a higher level, and to ask the right question. In understanding the bigger picture of what healthcare is in terms of designing a hospital is imperative, and the contextual issues surrounding that. Context doesn't mean only environment or in terms of physical design of the area. It also means people, the people of that area. The context is to do with people. So enough information has been collected or has been studied, enough understanding and knowledge of the question at hand also needed to be done in order for the student of architecture to present to another person, to have a dialogue, a meaningful dialogue that would take them to another level. If they're not able to be ready for it, then it's too bad for the student, because they will just get they won't get a good crit for sure. Whether they'll be helped during the crit or not is another issue. But so it's one of those things that one need to be aware of when one is coaching students of architecture, and whether that student has already come to that point where knowing what the job is to be done, or the whole thesis topic in terms of the problem statement that one has addressed from the asking the right question. The problem statement could be statements, not only one. It could be in terms of architecture solving a social economic problem, architecture solving infrastructure problem. What is it exactly that architecture will do? Because you're dealing with architecture, you're getting architecture to be the thesis, from a hypothesis of things, stating the problem statement from the research that has been done, to actually creating programs. What a sort of hospital are you thinking of doing? There's often the mistake of tutors to give the answer out to the student of architecture, and the student of architecture did not do the learning. And these are one of the things that architecture school did not teach you properly. That is the chance for you to learn on your own independently. There is a time when there is a discussion or a dialogue about the topic, and then you can't provide the solution to the student. The student have to come up with their own solution, have to ask their right questions. Hello, please ignore the noise background if you can hear it. Oh, my sincere apologies for that. Going back to this question, the topic at hand, what architecture school did not teach you, we come to a few things. I'm focusing on the design thesis naturally when I start this conversation about this topic. So it's a crucial thing to do, to ask the right questions. So even though this is a design thesis discussion, it also relates to other years. From the beginning, in the first year, students of architecture need to be understanding about this asking the right questions issue. How do you do that for a project that is, shall we say, application oriented? If you were to do a graphic design project in the first year, it is for the skill and understanding of how to do graphics communication. If you were to do a construction technology question or assignment, just say constructing a small house, for example, it is a construction problem. Putting things together, assembly, disassembly. If you were to give a problem, a design problem that is to be dealing with two things that you state to them, to the student of architecture, you even state the design problem to the student of architecture, meaning that you're designing a farm with a small cottage, and it has to be located in this corner of the site, and there need to be access from this part. And there are clumps of trees here, a pond, and it goes a slight slope going to a river about 500 meters away. So it's an application problem, a technical problem in a sense, finding out the datum or where one start to do the section, or where one get the brief, from the brief 100 meters square, so one places the spaces around in a sketch. Now, if you were to ask a bigger question or the right question about this, to originate or to create something that is not only a technical problem, is to tell a story. If the lecturer gives you the story, then it's all about the technical problem or the technical solution. But if you were given the chance, okay, this is the site, and we want the building to be in this corner, you can still make a story out of this, because it sort of gives a feel to your approach. And that story can come from the client. If the architect decides to give a story about the client, say an elderly couple with a dog, which has the grandson come to stay with them 3 months in a year. So you can finish off that story in detail. What does the boy do? What does the elderly couple do? What do they do every day? There is a chance for storytelling. The storytelling helps to define the problem. Now, as you go through the first year, you got that project, and that project was helpful in a way for you to just concentrate on the technical bits and trying to get to grips with drawing. Maybe the objective is let the student of architecture just concentrate on the drawing and completing the drawing and not so much about the story. And then in the next project, then give the chance for the student to do a story and let the concept comes out from the story. This ability or this skill, for example, the second project where the site is at a beach and the town is a touristy town, and at the moment you have some ramshackle huts, and it is make a small resort with 10 chalets, and you have enough land there, you can do whatever you want. So the student visit the site, get inspiration from whatever they wish to, nature or the site or people coming and going or the people living there, maybe the culture, finding out issues maybe. So they starting some research that is not led by the lecturer. And so this helps them to actually do problem statement or hypothesis of their design. And they come up with a concept that's based on their hypothesis or some sort of a problem statement. I don't want the chalet to be fronting the road, and every chalet will have its own area for. It's like almost like a self-sustaining private home that is by the beach, and they start, okay, they can stay for a long time or even have artist retreat, or they can do their own art and display their own art. It can be like a villagey place, and they could rent out cheaply for a longer stay, and it could be like a semi-retirement place or sorry, not a retirement, semi working during certain months of the year. So the student actually take off from learning about the context, and the context help to give a sense of the whole concept, the whole idea and planning. And if you have the same type of way of approach in how you would negotiate the student asking, I mean, the right question, I mean, it's the same thing again and again from first year to third year. They will never learn how to negotiate asking the right questions. They will decide on their own how to ask the right questions. And during the crit, in a way, is very well structured in a way that the lecturers ask directly or indirectly about the student asking the right question. Because I have done it the wrong way before, and at least I can learn from my mistakes and share with everyone out there how I felt that when I start answering questions for the student and just follow my instructions, they won't appreciate that aspect of knowledge and skill. And we don't do justice for them when they appear as a project architect. 3 years after graduation, they don't know how to ask the right question. They would be the sort of person that would want to take instructions all their life. So you don't give them a good grounding of how to negotiate the 21st century sort of expectations or life and competition, and trying to go about to act a living or to be doing a vocation that is called architecture, that is to be an architect. So it's all this disillusionment that happened after architecture school that became a problem, because architecture school did not teach them that skill. So that's the first skill, which consists of several things. Yeah, asking the right question, understanding to develop the problem statement, and seeing things in the bigger picture and at the same time in detail. That includes the ability to draw. The ability to draw is something else. That even goes to another point, which we will discuss in part 2, which is the use of manual and freehand drawing in creative expression that is necessary